In the Hall of the Mountain King is a really cool excerpt. You might have heard this from the Peer Gynt suite. If not, you can look into that. That's where the song Morning comes from, that da 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 da. It all comes from there. But in this specific part in the Hall of the Mountain King, especially if you listen to this already on Google, you can hear just the tension and the creepiness kind of building and building and building. And in this scene, he's the main character, the guy is being chased by trolls. So have that envision in mind when you're playing this excerpt. It's kind of a fun one. But it looks like, since we have marked arco at measure 23, that we're starting our excerpt at 15 with pizzicato. So that's a good thing. At the beginning, up to you, whatever you're more comfortable with. Some people are like, when I'm not sure about notes, I want to just pluck them and kind of figure it out. Other people are like, no, I just want to bow them slowly and figure them out. So whatever's more comfortable for you, start that way. For me, I would use my bow and take a look at all these fingerings that are happening here. They're really great fingerings, just a little awkward at first and take some practice. But in the long term, they make it a lot more comfortable. So I have my stretch 2, my G sharp. My G sharp is still a G sharp right here. Remember that those extra accidentals, those sharps carry through that whole measure. So we still have a G sharp there. Now here, this might look crazy. Like I'm putting a 1 on C and then a 4 on G sharp. What's happening? It's actually quite simple. When you start at the beginning, notice how I left my 4th finger down on the D string. All I'm going to do for the C is scoot my first finger up, so it's on C, because C is only a half step away from B. So I'm just going to keep my 4 there, play my C, and then I'll go back down to my B when it's time. C, B. Now I'm free to move my hand. Same thing. My first finger moves up. Oh, you can't see it, but it's right here. Moves up. So that's how that section works. Holding down that 4th finger, and you're just moving your first finger. 4 stays completely still. That's not too bad. And then once we get to 19, something kind of similar happens. Except here, we're not just moving a 1 around, we're shifting our whole hand back, half step, just like that. So my 1 is going back to D sharp, and instead of having my 3 on B like I usually do, my 4 is going to be on B, because everything is scooting back 1 half step. So it's just this little motion back and forth, and then everything is right there. E, C, E, D sharp, B, D sharp. And then I can let go. Right, so half step and open. Back to the regular part. Right, which isn't too bad. Then we are actually arco. So that whole section was pizzicato, mind you. And I think it's very important, if you write that at the beginning of 15, write P-I-Z-Z for pizzicato, so you remember to be pizzicato. Now here, we're supposed to be arco anyway. Some of this is a little repetitive of what we did pizzicato. And then there's that half step back. Everything scoots back, 1 and 4, and open. Right? So that's how we work out the first part. Before we get to 27, what I would do with all of that is take out all the rhythms. Just play every note as its own note. Scoot the 1 up. Scoot the 1 back down. Once you feel ready, start putting in the rhythms and playing a little bit slower. 27 might look crazy because, oh my gosh, look at all of that black ink. Like, what's happening here? They're not even 16th notes, right? They're even faster than 16th notes. What they are when you have those 3 lines is they're 30-second notes. Good news is that 30-second notes are equal to grace notes. If you played grace notes before, it's like a little flick of the finger. It's like a little extra ornamentation. Like you have your Christmas tree. My Christmas tree is, but I like to decorate my Christmas tree with ornaments. So I put my ornaments on top just to make it look a little prettier, a little funner, a little nicer. So that speed that I'm doing, that little flick of the finger, that's about a 30-second note here. So once we're in tempo here and at 27, It's not too bad. 1. So I'm going 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And this is also another thing that's back in that half position that we did. So 2 goes on E, 1 goes on D sharp, right? I'm not going to go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It'll be crazy. I'm going to lose control here. So just 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. And notice there's an accent above that first note each time, but it's also marked piano. So it's like just a little bite to that first note. It's still soft. And then the notes change with the last 2. Back in first position like we already know. All right. So for tempo, so this quarter note is 88 to 96. So what I would interpret that as is let's start 88. 88 can be our final tempo is what I mean at measure 15. But once we get to 27, it says poco più mosso. That stands for a little bit more motion. So it goes a little bit faster. So maybe start 88. And then when we get to 27, go to 96, 94, 96-ish, somewhere up there. But for now, since I can't change the metronome right in the middle, I'm going to take this 20 clicks below tempo at 68 for practice. Da, 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 da. A little bit slower and just keep it here. Starting pizzicato. 1, 2, 3, 4. Arco. So a couple things already after doing that. Recognize that each of those little ba-da-das are on the beat. This is not something syncopated like our excerpt right below it, Fire in the Forge, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right there. Also, we do have dots marked on our 8th notes, right? In 23, and we have arco. So I've noticed how I didn't play it as sticky staccato. Because it's not that way, right? That does not sound like trolls are chasing me. That sounds like the trolls' feet are stuck in mud and they're trying to get to me, but they're not very successful. Here, so the sound rings a little bit more and it gives a little bit more of that mystery sound to it. So now let's take it at 88, which I would call a good final tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. So not too scary there. Couple things when we're doing pizzicato on any audition, it's a little bit different when you're playing it for an audition versus playing it in an orchestra. For an audition, you're playing by yourself and you want to make sure that whoever you're playing for can hear you. Pizzicatos tend to be a little bit softer because we're thinking the orchestral setting, blending our sound with everybody. But for an audition, you might want to think of getting your pizzicatos just a tad bit louder to make sure they're clear and the judge can hear you and they're not trying to listen, where are those pizzicatos? So maybe think of it being not mezzo forte at the beginning, but if there's a dynamic between mezzo piano and mezzo forte, find that happy ground so everyone can hear you. Everything's clear versus this. That might be good for the orchestra because we're mezzo piano, we're all together. But in this case, you want to make sure that they can hear you.